Okay, so back. Please sit down. We're going to start again. So, up next. If you've ever seen her at a conference and she's not speaking, but she's paying attention to some of the talks, you'll often see her knitting as well. She's a big fan of knitting, and it works well while paying attention to somebody on stage. But today she won't be knitting. She'll be up on stage, and she'll be telling us a little bit about her social impact project that she's doing and how she's impacting the world in a positive way. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm applause to Felienne.
Hello everyone, my name is Felienne. I'm assistant professor at Delft University of Technology, where I research how to teach kids programming. So, who knows who said this? Everyone should learn programming. Any guesses? Bill Gates. Well, yeah, I'll say it's correct, because I think this is every programmer ever. Haven't you all said this? Oh, I love programming, and kids should learn programming, and everyone should learn programming because it's the best thing ever. But of course, this does lead to the question, what is programming? If I want people to know programming, then you need some sort of definition of what programming is. Which is it's really hard to know what programming is, I think, if you're a programmer. And this reminds me of this joke. It's one of my favorite jokes. It's really an inspiring joke, but also funny. So this joke is, there's this older fish that is swimming, and he runs into two little fishes. So the older fish says, "Hey, folks, how's the water?" And the two little fishes say, "What's water?" They don't know what water is. They're in the water. They don't know the difference between water and air because they're in the water. They have no conception of what water even means or is, or what a lack of water could be, because it's the only thing they know. And I think this is sometimes programming as well. We are so much in programming land, we only hang out with people that are programmers, that we don't even think about what programming is. And I was sitting there in the back and also knitting, but also listening. And when Justin interviewed Boris, I observed that he said, "Hey Boris, how is the tech scene?" But with tech scene, he didn't mean tech scene, he meant entrepreneurship scene. So here in this space where we are today, programming and tech is sort of a synonym to entrepreneurship. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's good to be aware of what something means. You have to be aware that you give a meaning to something that other people might have a different meaning to. So I'm from Rotterdam. For all the people from Amsterdam, it's right over there. It is a thing that's in Netherlands and not Amsterdam. It's a city called Rotterdam. And I moved there about 4 years ago to a new city coming from Brabant. And I wanted to do stuff in my neighborhood because I wanted to land and make friends around the neighborhood. So I ran into a bunch of kids in a neighborhood center called Het Centrum. And they needed a teacher to teach them programming. So it's like, oh, okay, I could do something for the neighborhood teaching kids programming because I know all about programming. I have all the knowledge. I was like the little fishes. I'm like, oh, I'm in this water. I know everything about programming, so I'm sure I can teach kids some programming. So we used a programming language called Scratch. Who here has seen or played with Scratch? Many people. Awesome. It's a free and open source programming language made by MIT. And as you can see, it's really meant for kids. It's very colorful and it's block-based, so kids can easily explore it. And also, as you can see, you can localize the keywords. So you can set the keywords to Dutch or French or Spanish. And that makes it just a little bit easier for kids to get into the programming because they can read what the programming is doing in their own natural language. This is a tool we used. It's free, it's open source, so it was really easy to start with. And I just said to the kids, let's make some games. When I was your age, I loved games. So we're going to make games with this program. And also, we're going to build robots, because you can also use Scratch to control hardware. There's a tool called Scratch for Arduino that you can use to program robots. So I was like, oh, things that kids like are games and robots. I know all the things. And the kids were like, yes, we love this. This is perfect. We also want games and robots. So everyone was happy. The end. This would have for sure been the end. So I think it's really, really easy if you teach something, or in general, if you do anything ever, to just do something and it works and you're happy and everyone is happy and it's fine. But I'm not just a normal person. Probably I shouldn't tell you. It's usually not the type of thing you share with many people, but I'm a superhero. It's true. I'm a superhero. I have a superpower. If I really, really want to know something, then I can figure it out. That's usually what superheroes are all about. So here's a normal person, and this normal person wants to know if someone is in this house. Normal person. He doesn't know, because he can't see through walls. But here is a superhero that wants to know if someone is in the building. Is the villain home? The superhero can use his superpower to figure stuff out. So I have a similar superpower. I really wanted to know what kids were doing with Scratch, not just the kids in my classroom. I really wanted to know, what are kids building in Scratch? What are the type of programs that get them really, really excited? And a normal person wouldn't know. But I knew because I have a superpower. I used my laser eyes. Well, not my laser eyes, but my programming skills. So because I wasn't just teaching, but I can also program, I could realistically answer this question. Because not just the source code of Scratch is open source, but also the programs that kids make and share are on the internet. You can download them and analyze them. So I wrote a little script to download 250,000 programs of Scratch and to figure out what are the kids doing and building in those programs. And the interesting thing that we found out is only half of the programs contained user interaction. So only half of the programs reacted to a keyboard, a mouse click, something that we would traditionally see as a game or something controlling a robot, reacting to something. Only half of it was the type of things I was teaching the kids, the games and the robots. The other half had no interaction at all. They were like animations, songs, things that just made the computer do something, but not interactive, not what you would traditionally call a program, because it wasn't really something very useful. And I was like, wow, because of my preconception of what I think programming is, I'm only serving half of what we could do. There are so many other things that kids could build, and I didn't even think of that. So then I was like, oh, I really need to teach kids different things. I need to come up with course material that isn't so guided. It isn't so about what I want to do, but it's more about what other stuff could exist. So I designed a few lessons around things that kids think is really cool. So what you see here is my Donald Duck lesson. So you see a bunch of Donald Ducks in the classroom. Here the kids get a Donald Duck magazine, and they recreate stories from the magazine in Scratch. So it's not very useful in a traditional sense, but it's definitely programming. And you can do a few fun tricks to get kids to think about programming concepts in the space of comics. Especially Donald Duck has 3 little nephews, Quick, Quack, and Quack. But I only put 1 nephew into the program that I make for them, the empty program that they play with. And then they're like, yes, but I need 3 nephews. And then you can talk about, hey, you know, we need a variable, and you can copy it, and you can have the program recreate 2 nephews next to the first one. So you can still really think about programming concepts, but in a universe, in a space that gets the kids immediately excited. And another lesson that we're doing, if you look at the screens here really closely, you can see that the kids are creating a Mondrian painting with Scratch. And this is super cool if you want to talk about abstractions and parameters. I first have all the kids draw a Mondrian on paper. And then we talk about what is similar in the paintings and what is different. So some kids only have blue, others have blue and yellow, others have red. So then probably color needs to be a parameter, because we want to have a program that can create all these different paintings. And some of them have seen the Victory Boogie Woogie, which is diamond-shaped. And if one of them has that, you have to talk about, oh, okay, so another parameter, another means of abstraction is the direction of the painting. Not just horizontal and vertical, but also diagonal lines need to be created. So in something that you traditionally wouldn't really call programming, like painting, you can still look at those programming concepts and have kids play with them without thinking about what is programming. So this sort of covered what to teach. I really changed from thinking about what I thought was really fun to listening to what the kids thought was really fun. But I've only really, at that point, changed what I was teaching. I didn't really change how I was teaching. The teaching was still very much based around construction. There's this interesting idea in programming education that if you want to get really good at building programs, you just have to build many programs. But if you think about lots and lots of other fields, then usually you practice little things you don't really need. You go to the gym and you do this exercise 100 times. Not because you want to get better at that exercise, but you want to build muscle and strength. So just assuming that if you want to get good at building programs, you have to build lots of programs is sort of silly. There are lots of other spaces in the world where we really think about how do we practice skills and what are the skills we need. So my teaching was still building. So I was really thinking, what can I do to not just innovate what we teach, but also how we teach? So I spent this summer in Cambridge doing a sabbatical there at Microsoft Research and the University of Cambridge. And luckily, there I was thinking of programming, not at home, but in the presence of really, really, really smart people that I owe a great deal of respect to. I chatted there with many people thinking about what is programming? What does it mean? And really interesting philosophical discussions about what programming can be. And then it hit me sort of like an apple in the head if you have an interesting idea. Programming is really, really similar to creative writing. These things are so similar that it's sort of weird that we don't talk about it more, or we don't talk about people from that space. Think about it. What is programming? If you look at it really, really abstractly, programming is you have an idea, like an app that tracks compliments. I really want that. If someone says something nice to me, I'll just say that again. And then later at night, I play everything back. That seems like a really nice idea. So I have a very, very high-level idea. And I translate this idea into letters and sentences. Sometimes maybe I use a design in the middle. So I write some UML diagrams or a user story. But ultimately, it is going from a very high-level idea to letters and words. What is writing? You have a really high-level idea for a book, like a frog is going to murder foreign diplomats. A really high-level idea. And I translate it into letters and words. It's the exact same thing. Maybe I draw some diagrams. Many creative writers do this, that they do some plotting, they make character sheets. This is how the frog feels like, and they try to live, and this is how his parents are and where he grew up. So there's some design, but ultimately it's from an idea to letters. And this led me to think, maybe we can learn something from how we teach creative writing to kids and take some inspiration from how we do that into teaching kids programming. Because we've been teaching kids writing and words for a very, very long time. We really know how to do that. There's lots of research what really works. And because it's so similar, why couldn't we take some inspiration from that? So one of the things that's really interesting in getting kids to read is that usually they read before they write. So if a kid is designing a story, if a kid is 5 or 6 and starts his first story, they've been exposed to stories for a very long time. If your kid is 2 or 3, you already start reading to them. If they're in kindergarten, they share stories with each other, they listen to stories, and also they do some little exercises. If you read to a 5 or 6-year-old, you read them a story, and then you ask them questions about it. This is what teachers typically do in kindergarten. In this story, who is the bad guy? In this story, what happened? Was it a funny story or an exciting story? So we're training kids about stories way before we're even starting them on the basics of motor skills. So we could do something like that in programming as well. So this is an experiment we are running right now at a school where some of the kids we teach in the traditional way, but other kids, we have them read first. So we give them a program in Scratch, and we ask them, what does this program do? We haven't taught them a thing about programming. We just give them a game or an animation, and we ask them to play with it, to figure out what it does. And then we zoom in on the little block. So here's one block. And remember, in Scratch, the blocks are in Dutch. So it's quite feasible to ask a kid, if you click this, it will disappear in Dutch. And then have them guess or deduce what it means. And especially because Scratch is a block-based language, you don't have to type the commands. You can look at all the commands and play with them. It seems quite feasible to teach kids in an explorative way. Teach them deconstruction and analysis before teaching them construction. And actually, if you look at reading, it makes a lot of sense. So because we take this experience from other fields, we're really changing the way we teach. And this also really nicely addresses, for me, the elephant in the room, especially in crowds that are not programming crowds. Why are we teaching kids programming? If you compare programming with writing, this gets really easy to answer why should all kids learn programming, because we have the answer basically to why should all kids learn writing. Usually the answer to why should kids learn writing is for their career. This is an important thing. You need writing to be employed. You need writing to be a productive and useful member of society. Sometimes you need to read a letter or write a letter. So you need to, if you want to participate in society, you need some writing skills. But the third thing, of course, is creative expression. Why do we want kids to be able to write? So that if they have a brilliant idea about whatever they know a lot about, they can write a book or an essay or a speech. That is one of the things that makes it really important for kids to writing. We want to know everyone's ideas, and we want to give people the skills to share their ideas with other people. But then if we talk about programming, why should kids learn programming? This is usually what you hear. Kids need to learn programming because we need more programmers. We lack programmers, and then we need to teach kids, so they're programmers. Yes, of course, we need more programmers. That is important. But other things are really important too. You hear a little bit about kids need some programming or digital skills to participate in society. If you want to do online banking or your taxes, or you want to understand what a phishing email looks like. There's some focus also on digital skills for participation in society. But what I really see a lack of is you need programming for self-expression. What I would want to see in the world is that if kids have a fantastic idea, if everyone in society has a fantastic idea, that they don't say, I wish I could solve this, I wish I could build that, but that all people in the world, all kids in the world, have that special superpower that they can build something. I think that is what really, really matters, why we want kids to learn programming. Not because they can be programmers, exactly like not everyone will be a writer, but because we want to see their good ideas. We want to see the prototypes of all sorts of apps from people that we don't see that now because they don't have the skills. That was it. I know it was really short, so I'll quickly summarize my entire talk in 1 minute. So if you were sleeping or late or jet lag from lunch, this is your second shot at getting everything from my talk. We really need to talk and think about the water of programming. The fact that we are professional programmers limits our brain power. It puts a scope around what we can see as programming. And that's fine, but especially in programming education, we need to be aware of not transferring our ideas, programming is for entrepreneurship, programming is robots, to kids, because we just want to give them the building blocks and see what they can do. So don't transfer your ideas. Think about those question marks. What are the cool stuff, the cool things we haven't seen yet? Programming is a superpower. As I showed in my talk, if you really want to know something and you know some programming, you can probably figure it out. And that is such a powerful skill for all sorts of fields that we really want everyone to have that skill. Not for the career, not for the participation in society, but just because we want to see everyone's ideas. That's what I would really love. I'm Felienne, I'm on Twitter as well, and if you want to read about my research or all those cool lesson ideas I have for Scratch, they're all on my website. Questions that people always ask is, how do you make these slides? I made them with GoodNotes and an Apple Pencil, and thanks to all sort of smart people that helped me do this.